Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Chemistry Challenge Awards webinar for 2021. Before we jump into the webinar content, I wanted to provide a brief overview of the WebEx software. To start, there are a few ways to join the audio today. You can either listen via your computer speakers, use the Call Me feature to receive an automated call from WebEx, or you can call in using the information that's posted in the Q&A box. All participants will be muted for the duration of the webinar, regardless of the audio method that you choose. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation today using the Q&A box located on the right-hand side of your screen. When you submit a question, please select All Panelists from the drop-down menu, and this will ensure that all of the speakers see your question. We will save all questions until after the presentation. With that, I will pass the webinar over to Chen from EPA to kick things off.
Thank you, Sarah. Hope everyone can hear me just fine. This is Chen from EPA, and I help run the Green Chemistry Challenge Awards program. I'm pleased to co-present with David Constable from the American Chemistry Society, our partner in this awards program. David is the Science Director for the American Chemistry Society's Green Chemistry Institute. In this role, he works to catalyze and enable implementation of green chemistry and engineering throughout the global chemistry enterprise. David has held a variety of industry roles in his career, including energy, environment, safety, and health focus on influencing scientists, engineers, and decision makers responsible for chemical research, development, and manufacturing in the chemical, pharmaceutical, and aerospace and defense industries. He has developed a number of different programs, systems, tools, and methodologies that integrate sustainability, life cycle inventory assessment, green chemistry, and green technology activities into existing business processes. So our goal today for this webinar is to really go over the awards criteria, how we run the awards program, and to most importantly, answer any questions that you may have about the awards program. As Sarah mentioned, please type in your questions throughout the webinar, and we will come back to address as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about the Green Chemistry Challenge Awards program. The awards program is really designed to recognize environmental and economic benefits of developing and using novel green chemistry. As you all know, green chemistry can significantly contribute to EPA's effort to promote source reduction, and this is a great opportunity for us to share, but more importantly, to recognize your innovation in the green chemistry realm. Next slide, please.
So the Green Chemistry Challenge Awards began back in 1996, and they really have their roots in the Pollution Prevention Act of 1990. The EPA's Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention co-sponsors the awards with the ACS, and we've been doing that throughout the entire history of the awards. EPA has received over 1,800 nominations and has presented over 123 award winners. Next slide.
And through 2019, which is 2 years ago now, the 118 winners with their technology provided huge opportunities for pollution prevention. And we just provided some numbers below to show you the impact of those technologies over some 24 years, including over 800 million pounds of hazardous chemicals and solvents eliminated, over 21 billion gallons of water saved each year, and over 7.8 billion pounds of carbon dioxide equivalents eliminated. Next slide, please.
So from the EPA's perspective, the purpose of these awards is green chemistry, which is the design of chemical products and processes that reduce or eliminate the use or generation of hazardous substances. Green chemistry applies across the life cycle of a chemical product, including its design, manufacture, use, and ultimate disposal. And as has been said several times, green chemistry is really and was considered at its inception to be the ultimate form of source reduction, the very best way to reduce pollution. And it is done through minimizing or eliminating hazardous chemicals and the feedstocks, reagents, solvents, and products. Next slide, please. So there are 5 award categories that you can see on the screen. Greener synthetic pathways, greener reaction conditions, the design of greener chemicals, an award for small business. Now, small businesses, you'll note, can submit technology in any of the 3 focus areas. And then academic. And again, for academics, they also are able to submit under any of the 3 focus areas. Individuals can also suggest more than one focus area. So for example, you might say, I have a greener synthetic pathway, but it also, because I've done a lot of process development, applies to greener reaction conditions. And that's actually a good thing. Because it gives the judges a little bit of flexibility when it comes time to judge. So next slide, please. So the scope of the program, it's important to remember that the nominated technology needs to meet the 3 or 6 criteria. So it needs to be a green chemistry technology with a significant chemistry component. This is where some people get a little bit off the rails, if you will, because it isn't exactly chemistry. And so I need to emphasize very importantly that it is focused on chemistry, not engineering, okay? You can have engineering aspects to it, but it really is on and was always meant to be focused on novel chemistry. It includes source reduction. The sponsor must be an eligible entity. There needs to be a significant milestone in the development within the past 5 years. So that gives you a little bit of flexibility. If you apply for a patent and you've taken several years to develop the technology, that's great. Have a significant U.S. component, and it needs to fit within at least one of the 3 focus areas of the program. Now, I'll come back to items 3, 4, and 5 in more detail a little bit later. Next slide, please. So examples of green chemistry technology are listed on the slide you see on the screen. Any chemistry product or chemical product or process that reduces negative impacts on human health and the environment. So chemical processes, so any aspect of those chemical processes, the synthesis, the catalysis, reaction conditions, so on and so forth. Any improvements at any stage of a chemical's life cycle. You can substitute single improved product or an entire synthetic pathway. It's very important that you clearly identify the benefits to human health and the environment. It may be at just one point in the life cycle, or it may be throughout, but that connection needs to be very obvious in the nominations. Anyone who has demonstrated that they've incorporated green chemistry at the earliest design stages of a new product or process, anywhere where you've employed a significant change in the chemistry, and as I mentioned, you can have green engineering practices that support that change in chemistry. Reduces or eliminates the hazardous chemicals used to clean up environmental contaminants. Next slide.
So I wanted to just dive into definitions for a little bit. You've heard us talk about source reduction and what does that mean? So for this program, EPA's definition of green chemistry is the use of chemistry for source reduction. And according to the Pollution Prevention Act of 1990, which is what created our program, The term source reduction, also known as pollution prevention or P2, means any practices that reduces the amount of hazardous substances, pollutants, and contaminants entering any waste stream or otherwise released into the environment, or reduces the hazard to public health and the environment associated with the release of such substances, pollutants, and contaminants. And the term includes equipment or technology modification, process or procedure modification, reformulation, redesign of products, substitution of raw materials, improvements to housekeeping, maintenance, training, and so on and so forth. The key message there is source reduction really does not mean, how do you treat a hazardous waste, but really how do you modify the process so that hazardous substances do not get produced to begin with. And let's go to the next slide, please. And who are eligible to apply for this award? So a number of different entities are eligible to apply, including companies, individuals, academic institutions, which includes state and tribal universities and their reps, nonprofits and not-for-profit organizations and their reps. They are all eligible to apply for this award. Unfortunately, if you are a federal employee or a federal scientist working at, let's say, one of the federal labs, you are not eligible to apply for this award. However, if you are, say, a private company or, say, an academic institution who is partnered with a federal lab, as long as you are not a federal employee working for the lab, you do have the eligibility. If you have any specific questions about that, feel free to contact me and we can kind of figure it out. And I'll provide my contact information towards the end of the slides. Next slide, please.
So significant milestones. You've made a critical discovery that would qualify, that you've just published some key results, that you've submitted a patent application and it's been accepted for review and or approved. Great if you've gotten to pilot plant construction and demonstration. The relevant regulatory review initiated or completed, a very important step in the development of any new commercial product, as you know. And the technology implemented or launched commercially. I mean, this is ideally what you would like, is to have that technology actually, near entry to market or already on the market. But again, any one of these milestones qualifies as significant. Next slide, please. So this is an area of great interest, particularly for those of you who are with us from other countries. The nominations need to have a significant U.S. component. So what's happened in the past is that there's been a company, usually like a large international company, global footprint. They have made a discovery and say, just for the sake of argument, that it's in Europe, and then they transfer that compound to the United States for it to be developed and demonstrated and scaled up and then ultimately go on to the market. That's a significant U.S. component, okay? It is not sufficient for you just to say we are going to sell the product in the U.S., but everything else was done offshore. That really does not qualify. You may squeeze through if, major development was done in another country, but then you had to go ahead and redevelop and change the technology, and you actually improved the technology and, have implemented some additional green chemistry benefits. That might also meet the standard. So next slide, please.
All right, so I'm going to drill a little bit deeper into each one of the different categories, the three categories that we talked about, the focus areas, which are the greener synthetic pathways, greener reaction conditions and designer greener chemicals. And just remember, for those of you who are either in the academic or small business categories, you will need to indicate in your application which one of these 3 focus areas your application is in. All right? So let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about green synthetic pathways. So for green synthetic pathways, we're really looking for designing and implementing a novel green pathway to produce either a new or existing chemical substance. And we give a few examples below: using greener feedstocks that are innocuous or renewable, use of novel reagents or catalysts, including biocatalysts and microorganisms, use of natural processes such as fermentation or biomimic synthesis, or are atom economical, or are convergent synthesis. Let's go to the next one and talk about focus area number 2, greener reaction conditions. For greener reaction conditions, we're looking for improving conditions other than the overall design or redesign of a synthesis. Greener analytical methods often fall within this focus area. Some examples include replacing hazardous solvents with solvents that have less impact on human health and environment, use of solventless reaction conditions and solid-state reactions, use of novel processing methods that prevent pollution at its source, eliminate energy or material-intensive separations and purification steps, improve energy efficiency, including reactions running closer to ambient conditions, or reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please. The third focus area is the design of a greener chemical. This focus area involves design and implementing chemical products that replace more hazardous products. Examples include chemical products that are less toxic than the current product, inherently safer because they reduce the likelihood or severity of accidents, are recyclable or biodegradable after use, and safer for the atmosphere. For example, does not deplete ozone, form smog, or other things. Next slide, please. And what are the selection criteria? So the nominated chemistry technologies that meet the scope of the program will be judged on how well they meet the following 3 selection criteria. That there's science and innovation, and there is demonstrated human health and environmental benefits. We ask you to consider the entire life cycle of the product, showing qualitative and quantitative measures of benefits, the applicability and impact of your product or chemistry. Next slide, please. And how do you apply? Well, the first good news is there's absolutely no application fee. So anyone who fits all the other criteria are more than encouraged to apply. The award nominations are due by December the 4th of this year. We pulled it up a little bit so that we don't ruin your Christmas and New Year's holidays this year. There is no standard entry form, but you must meet the certain criteria or certain requirements, or EPA may reject the nomination. What we have done in the nomination packets is we laid out the key elements that we would like to see in your nomination packet, so that you can help judges understand the impact of your green chemistry by comparing your green chemistry to one that it's designed to replace. So, for example, how is it better performance? How does it perform better than, let's say, the current chemistry? How is it better from a life cycle perspective? Are there any downsides to your particular green chemistry? Another hint for you is if you have more than one technology that you are trying to nominate, you could submit a separate standalone nomination for each one of those technologies. However, if your technology has multiple uses, we encourage you to combine all those uses into one application. That actually makes it better and more compelling for our judges. Next slide, please. The nomination packets is available online for you to download, and you'll see the link there. Or if you just Google EPA Green Chemistry Challenge Awards, that will take you to the page where the package is available. You should submit your nominations by email to greenchemistry@epa.gov. Include a primary sponsor's name in the file name, and please submit your nomination as a PDF so that we won't screw up your files by accident. What we will do is we will send you a confirmation of receipt email after we get your nomination packet, just so that you know that we've gotten it. If you encounter any problems in your submission, feel free to send us an email at the greenchemistry@epa.gov email address, or call us at 202-564-8849, which is my number. All right, next. So how are the applications judged? Just to give you a little sense of what's going on in the back room. EPA will conduct an initial screening of all the nominations. So what we're really doing there is we do some basic checks to make sure that your nomination is actually for a green chemistry and not a engineering type product, as David was mentioning earlier. If yours is a resubmission, and we do get resubmissions from prior years, we want to make sure that, if it's exactly the same as prior years, or if there's actually any changes to the nomination. Once we have done the initial screening, we pass all the eligible nominations to ACS, and ACS generates a panel of technical experts along with EPA to judge the nominations. The judges will recommend award recipients for all 5 different categories. Let's see, the judges, they may use their discretion to recommend more than one award winner per category, depending on the quality of the nominations. The award nominations will also be subject to a EPA compliance enforcement screen. And all that means is because this is a fairly high level recognition by the federal government, we cannot and do not want to recognize any companies or individuals who may either have had a fairly recent or current enforcement problem. So we have had situations where a nominee came in and gets the nod from the judges, but we found that they have recently had a major environmental violation, and we were not able to give them the award as a result. So we run through that process just to make sure that we're not recognizing you for one thing, but you're violating the environmental laws on the other hand. Next slide, please. So if COVID goes away, and I guess that's a big if, we hope to have the award ceremony early in the summer of 2021. For this year, for example, we weren't able to hold a live ceremony because of the COVID situation. ACS was nice enough to have Alex Dunn, whose picture is on the slide right now, do a virtual presentation at their Green Chemistry and Engineering Award this year to recognize the winners, but we hope to bring them back in 2021 so that we can give them a real recognition on stage to celebrate their achievements. But we hope, so count on being in Washington hopefully in the summer of 2021 if you are a winner. Let's go to the last slide. So if you have any questions, and David and my information is on this very last slide, please feel free to email or call either one of us with any questions. Just a final note, we are recording this webinar so that in case you want to listen to any information again, we will be posting a webinar recording probably in about a week or two, and we will send out a quick notice through the Green Chemistry listserv. Or if you want to find out more specifically, feel free to send me a quick note and I can update you on the status of that. With that, let's see if there's any questions that came in from the audience.
Chen, if I may, I'd just like to say a few words about judging. Is that okay?
Sure.
I just want to echo what Chen said about resubmissions. Actually, many of the award winners have been the result of resubmission of their nomination. So encourage you to do that. You never know what the field of nominations will be. And some years, yours will rise to the top. That's one thing. The other thing I would say about resubmissions is please take the time to evaluate whether or not in the first go around you really touched on the key criteria that judges will be looking on. So very strong chemistry component, and it's a technical component. It isn't a sales pitch. So it's a technical component, and it has a very strong connection to that pollution prevention and the protection of human and environment, human health and the environment. Those are really important and key characteristics that sometimes, if you make those cases strongly, really put you above other nominations. So with that, I will turn it over, I guess, to Sarah if there's any questions.
Let me just, I want to echo what David just said. I had a chance to run through all the applications this last year, and in some cases, the nominees are just not telling us enough information for the judges to be able to really judge what they're looking at. So please try to answer those questions that David had just mentioned in your application, so that there is enough information there for the judges to really say, like, what is the innovation in this green chemistry, and what is the human health and environmental impact of this green chemistry. And numbers are great. Give us more data than less. Now, we do restrict the number of pages that you can provide us, but to the degree you can, show us your homework, if you will. And, the judges are chemists from across both industry and academia, and, they are really good, brilliant chemists who knows a lot about chemistry, way more than I ever will. And they ask very tough questions about each chemistry. So that's your audience when you're writing your nomination. With that, any questions from the audience? David, I think we stunned them into silence here.
It would appear so.
All right. Don't be shy. All right, if there aren't any questions, I'm sure, as you look through the packet, questions will probably pop into your head. Feel free to contact myself or David if you do have any questions that come up. We're happy to try to field them. And as I said, if you want to listen to us talk through this presentation again, and if you want to try to get a copy of the slides, just let one of us know, and we'll be happy to get the slides to you and let you know when the recordings are available online.
Just one other thing I'd encourage you to do is to please take a look at previous award winners and read the summaries. That gives you a good idea of the kinds of awards or nominations that have succeeded in the past, and might give you some ideas about how to write your package.
Right, and you can just Google the EPA Green Chemistry Challenge Awards, and there is an entire page full of all the winners from the past 25 years.
Chen, are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, it sounded like my audio was frozen for a moment. We did have some questions come into the Q&A box, so I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to answer those. Sorry for the delay there with the audio, but I can go ahead and read those out.
Yes, please.
So the first question is, someone asked and said that they are aware that federal scientists are not eligible for the award, but are federal scientists able to nominate non-federal people for this award?
David, help me out on this. I think the answer is yes. But if you are nominating someone else's technology, I would just want to make sure that you have enough knowledge of the green chemistry that you're nominating and its impact so that you can write a really good nomination.
Yeah, the federal person can help, but these really are intended to be self-nominations, right? A company or a person within a company writes the nominations. So if you've collaborated as a federal laboratory investigator, and this has happened, and there's either a spin-off company or you've collaborated very closely with that company, that's perfectly acceptable for you to participate in helping to put that nomination together.
Right.
Great, thank you. In the next question, we have a few people wondering when the winners will be notified, if you'd go over that.
Sure. I'm running through the calendar in my head. So depending on how long it takes us to finish the compliance screening, I would say by about April or May of 2021, we should be able to notify you, and then we will probably coordinate a specific date for the actual public announcement, which will probably be in June, whenever we have the award ceremony. So that will be the rough time frame. Is late April, early May will be when we communicate with the winners and say, you got the nod, but there'll be probably a sort of a quiet period until EPA can make the public announcement in conjunction with the award ceremony.
Great, thanks. So speaking about nominations, we have someone wondering approximately how many nominations are received for each category.
Ooh, I don't have a breakdown by each category. I can tell you in 2019 we got a total. I'm sorry. For the 2020 awards, we got a total of, I think, 41 nominations.
So let me just say that it varies year on year. There are some years that, typically the largest category is the small business category, but remember that they can nominate in any of the 3 focus areas. So you have to consider that. Academics are usually you'll get 3 or 4, maybe 5 in any given year. And for the other categories, the one that probably is the smallest is the greener synthetic pathways.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we have another question that came in. Does the judging have a quantitative factor for different aspects? So I guess, yeah, if you could just talk a little bit more about the judging.
Right. So what we try and do is have each judge, three judges for every nomination package. It is handled quantitatively. The judge assigns a score according to the categories that we've gone through. So for example, is it novel and innovative chemistry? Does it have a significant human health or environmental benefit? So on and so forth. And we try and provide guidance to the judges about how they can think about those particular things.
Great, thank you. And another question, is scale of technology considered as a factor for evaluating impact?
Scale of the technology. So I assume that means that if you're at commercial scale and you're putting out a large amount of material and you've reduced through green chemistry the impacts, that's an important determinant. That's certainly something that the EPA likes to see. But in the case of, say, a bioactive compound in pharma or in agrochemicals or, some related area, they don't produce a huge amount of any given substance, but they can demonstrate that at the scale that they are producing, it's had a huge impact on the environmental impact and human health profile. I hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you. So we have a few questions that pertain to the nomination package. So one person asks, is it necessary to show the actual LCA numbers in the nomination package?
Well, scientists and engineers who compose the judging are numbers folks. So they like data, just like you do. And I think that the more you can make it quantifiable, the better. So you don't necessarily ever have to reveal actual numbers, but you can make relative. So like a percentage always works, or a ratio of some kind where it's impossible to figure out the amount. But as long as you show the relative benefit, to a comparison or something like that, we like life cycle. That's a great demonstration. So many greenhouse gas equivalents have been reduced or removed. That's a wonderful thing to put in the nomination package. It's not required, but if you did have it, it would certainly put you above somebody who didn't have that kind of information.
Okay, great. Thank you. We also have someone asking if you could explain in a little more detail what might be needed in a supporting letter accompanying the nomination package.
A supporting letter. In terms of judging, the main thing is that you meet the criteria. In my mind, the supporting letter just should amplify any of the points that you make in the nomination package. So, for example, the supporting letter might be where you identify more of the commercial benefits. But again, the award is really about the technical aspects of chemistry and of the impacts and benefits for human health and the environment.
And if I can add, we do have a page limit on your nominations. So just keep in mind how you want to utilize the pages that you have.
Great, thank you. We also have a clarification question about how the review team will contact the nominator if they need any clarification during the review process.
David, can you handle that one?
Well, I think that the key time for any questions is really when the EPA, don't mean to throw it back to you.
No worries.
The EPA does a pre-screen, and I think that's a really important time for them. If they pretty much have been doing this for a while and they understand what judges are looking for, and occasionally they might say, gee, we need a little bit more information, again, not confidential business information, but a little bit more technical information about this particular thing to clarify, what you're saying in the nomination package. The judges themselves do not go back and ask, for more information from the nominee. So the nomination has to stand on its own merits. So that's why it's really important that you take time to craft the nomination package to, clearly articulate the benefits.
Great, thank you. And another question about the nomination package. How important is the sales data or financial impact data within the nomination packet?
That, in my mind, is far less important. To be perfectly candid, we do get nomination packages occasionally where a judge will say, this just strikes me as a sales pitch, and I just can't see, the chemistry or the human health benefits or environmental impact benefits. So be very careful. I mean, it's okay to say, this has shown market penetration, and in first year sales have gone up by 50% or something like that. But I mean, that's one sentence. It's not a significant component of the nomination. It does demonstrate that you've achieved a significant milestone, and
Right.
That's sufficient.
Right.
Okay, great, thank you. So we had a clarification question on the eligible dates. So someone asked, does a chemical technology need to have been launched less than 5 years to be eligible from the date of application? So, for example, would a technology from December of 2015 be eligible?
I believe it would be. We've had some nominations where the patents were filed as early as 10 years before. But what I would say is that if you don't have a significant development effort, in other words, you may have filed a patent and it takes you a while to get to a point where you've modified the method modified the process and implemented your green chemistry improvements, that's fine. But you need to show that, and that needs to be fairly recent. To sit on something that's been many, many years ago is not, it won't be seen, I don't think, as, as valid or as viable as something that has been done more recently.
Great, thank you. Do you mind clarifying how many winners there are for each category?
Sure. Typically, we have one winner per category. Occasionally, and David, I have not actually experienced this during my short time, is if there are more than one outstanding nomination per category, the judges may recommend more than one.
So that is the case. We always recommend a nominee and a backup, because one of the things that happens is that the recommendation is made and the EPA goes back and assesses from an enforcement perspective about whether or not those nominations are viable. So we always have to be prepared to have more than one We have in the past what we try and do is if we have two superlative winners in a particular focus area, and by comparison, a weaker one, so say two outstanding green pathways and some less superlative entries in the greener process conditions, we can take one of those, recommend to the EPA that they actually take one of those from the category in the greener synthetic pathways and award it for the greener process conditions. So there is a little bit of horse trading in that, but again, it's only in the situation where you're talking about true excellence in the nomination or in the technology.
Great, thanks. So the next question is about the different categories. So this person is a university professor, and they're wondering if they should apply for the academic category or for a category that, for example, greener synthetic pathways that is relevant to their work. So if you could provide any clarity for professors at universities.
Well, the academics can apply for any of the focus areas. So apply under. So it's an academic, and say they've created this technology, and they can apply under greener synthetic pathways or greener process conditions or greener product. So any of those will work for them. It's an academic. It's recognizing the unique nature of academic research.
Right. So to say it a different way, we actually put the academic nominations in its own category, if you want to think of it that way, and you can choose any of the three focus areas, but we'll put you in the special category of academics.
Right. You aren't compared to the other, small businesses or businesses in those categories. You're in a category by yourself.
Right.
Great, thanks. We have another question on the categories and what would be applicable for an award. Could you clarify if the award is for a team or just one person? This specific question is asked because their team involves people from federal labs, although their lead is from academia. So if you could provide any clarity on that.
What I would say is there's been as many as 30 people from one nomination on the stage during an award. So yes, very large teams are common, particularly in the way businesses do things. And precisely as you mentioned, as a federal, it was 2 years ago or so, there was a federal lab person that was either a spinoff company or they had collaborated and they were part of the team through that collaboration. So yes, the teams, like I said, that 10, 12 people is not uncommon.
Great, thank you. The next question is if there is any assurance of the confidentiality of intellectual property for a nominated technology.
So you're encouraged not to reveal confidential business information or IP in what you do. You have to find alternative mechanisms to demonstrate if you're concerned about IP, is what I would say. Trying to think of an example of how to. If there is a question about IP, what I would encourage you to do is to have a chat with Chen, because they operate under confidential business information all the time as part of their, TSCA, PMN type things.
Right.
So if there's any question whatsoever about that, bounce the question off of Chen and, come to some kind of an agreement. Chen, does that make sense?
Yeah, what we'll probably do is we need to double check with our lawyers and make sure we understand, whether we are obligated under the law to share anything in any particular way. And if we could shield the CBI information, we will. But if we're obligated under the law to disclose some information somehow, then we'll advise you of that, and then figure out a way for you to give us enough information, but not, have any adverse impact on you.
I would say also that the judges basically operate under confidentiality. So when they judge, they can't tell anybody they're a judge. They also are not able to keep the materials. We ask them to destroy them after the judging. And we try to maintain, the security of the nomination packages. So we try and protect that as best we can.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, how important is technology readiness for Focus Area 1?
Technology readiness. So say you're a pharma manufacturer and you're in late phase 3 and you are positioning that material for entry onto market, and you have a commercial scale process which you have demonstrated at scale, and you submit the nomination package on that, that's fine. Sometimes it happens that compound could be that late stage and it can fail for one reason or another. You can't predict that. So what I would say is that you have to demonstrate it at a sufficient enough scale for your data to be meaningful. By that I mean, you can calculate, maybe you aren't at commercial scale, you're at pilot scale, and you're projecting if this is scaled up to this particular level in any given year, we expect peak year sales to be this, and we expect the benefit to be that. But what I would do is to show this is what it is at scale, and this is what it's projected to be. Chen, anything else you want to add to that?
I don't got nothing.
Okay.
Great, thanks. The next question, is there any preference given to drop-in products over totally new products? Drop-in replacements over totally new products?
Is there preference? No. I think that they're, treated equally. So if you have a drop-in replacement that's using, a different set of say it's a polymer, and your monomers to that polymer are of a certain nature and a process associated with that, but you were able to make the required bonds in a completely novel process, and it's virtual drop-in once you do that and produce the polymer. That's fine. That works. I mean, that's great. If it's just a drop-in replacement where it's not particularly novel, like the process modifications are not significant, I would say you have less of a case to make, unless those modifications resulted in an enormous benefit from human health and environmental perspective.
Great, thanks. We have a follow-up question to the discussion before about federal employees at national labs. This person is asking if federal just to confirm, if federal employees at national labs can be listed, just not as the primary contact person?
Yes, and that's been done before.
Yep. Because there's a lot of collaboration work. The federal lab just cannot be the primary entity.
Okay, great. Thank you. The last question I see here, and I'll give a minute for people to get additional questions in, but the last one at the moment, can you confirm that when the 41 submissions last year was an aggregate of all categories? And then a second part to this question is, if you're a small business entity, are you able to enter both in the category itself and get separate consideration in the small business category?
Let me take the second one first. So if you're a small business and you saw the definition in one of the slides of what we would consider to be a small business, you get your own special category. So we're comparing you as a small business against other small businesses, and you can choose one or multiple of the three focus areas, but we'll put you in the small business box, if you will. And then, David, are you able to take on the first question?
Could you just remind me what the first part of that question was, please?
Sure. So this person is just wondering if the 41 submissions received last year, were an aggregate across all of the categories.
Yes, it's
Yes.
an aggregate.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, in terms of nominations, so historically they've been quite high, between that 40 plus to, as many as 80 some since I've been most intimately involved. And, there were a few years where they were very low and we were struggling a little bit. So you really can't tell. We hope that there's a lot of nominations because that actually makes it more exciting, and it actually, is a great demonstration that lots of people are doing green chemistry. So we just encourage people to err on the side of entering and let us decide whether or not it fits the bill.
Great, thank you. That is the last question that I see in the Q&A box. If we want to give a few minutes, there may be some additional ones, but at the moment, we've covered all of them.
So I'll just take this moment to remind folks that we will make recordings of this webinar available as soon as we can turn that around. So hopefully in a couple weeks, and we'll post that on our website. And we will also post the slides for those who are interested in looking through that again.
I'd just like to say thanks for everybody for attending today. Very excited to see at our peak we had 86 people. It's my sincere hope that we get lots of nominations this year. And please do pass this along to colleagues in other businesses so that we can really get a great field of nominations.
I think one question just popped in, Sarah.
Yep, we got an additional one. Are innovations demonstrated at lab scale encouraged to apply?
Well, certainly if you're an academic, that's the case. When small business, if you can demonstrate that lab scale is the basis against which you are building a pilot plant, or you are, achieving the funding, you've gone out and gotten funding from investors or something like that. I think the point here is it can't just be something that you've done in the lab, and it's just solely the first pass. You need to have sufficient understanding of your process and be able to make a good case that, in comparison, the process, parameters or the pathway that you have demonstrated, can be done at larger scales. And patents are always good. You've applied for a patent, that's some indication that it's potentially viable technology. But again, it really, you have to be careful about that. I don't want to oversell lab scale.
I would just refer you back to the significant, what did we call it?
Significant milestones.
Yeah, look at the significant milestones and make sure you can at least peg one of them.
Yeah, the more you can peg, the better.
Right. Show us it's just not you, doing chemistry for fun. That it will be commercial one day.
I mean, the reason I'm saying what I'm saying is, remember that if you've got a bunch of nominations of people who have demonstrated, or have achieved those significant milestones, yours just won't hold up to, that comparison. So it's really to your advantage to demonstrate, the milestones and that you've achieved them.
We're looking at it a different way. Wait a year or two until you get some of those milestones under your belt, and then come in.
Great, thank you. I haven't seen any additional questions come in.
Oop, I think I saw just one more pop in.
Oh, yep. One just came in as I was speaking. This person asked, can you resubmit an application made previously with additional data?
Absolutely.
What I would say, again, about resubmissions is just make sure that you are highlighting, these significant milestones. You're highlighting the chemistry. You're highlighting how the additional data bolsters your case for the human health or environmental, reduction impact. Those kinds of things. So it isn't sales data, or it isn't necessarily commercial success. It's really what, the technical aspects.
Great. And I'll just wait a moment here to see if any last minute questions come in. Oh, someone asked where they can find more information on the milestones.
I think all the information that's there is on the website as part of the nomination package. Chen.
Right.
Is that right?
And then you'll also see it when we post the presentation as well.
And not to speak for Chen, but I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions about, the significance of a milestone.
Great. And again, I'll give just a moment to see if anyone has any other questions.
I'll just say you guys had a lot of good questions. Hopefully this means there's a lot of interest in applying for the award this year, and we look forward to seeing what you submit.
Great. I'm not seeing any more questions come through at the moment.
Well, we're a little bit over time anyway. So if there's no further questions, I want to thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in and asking some great questions. If you have any additional questions, feel free to call or email us. I think you still see the contact information on the slide there. And if you want to download the nomination packet, go to the Green Chemistry Challenge Awards page. You'll see the link there. And we will make the presentation and a recording of this webinar available there as soon as we can.
Great. Thank you. And I will go ahead and close out the webinar.
Thanks so much, everybody. And thanks, David.
Thank you.